what do you do? Like, or is it a mindset shift for you, or their behaviors? Is it mindfulness? I mean, how do you, since we went deep already, let's just keep going. I mean, or as Winston Churchill said, I know if Indians should quote Winston Churchill, but one of his quotes was, "If you're going through hell, keep going." And I do love that. So, what tips and tricks do you have? How do you live your life differently or out loud?
I mean, I think honestly, having wonderful friends and a wonderful community and a family to be able to connect with and talk to. I mean, friends have come to me, saying, I'm filled with despair and I don't know what to do. How are you doing it? And to be honest, say, frankly, at this point, I also really think about my Palestinian friends and I ask myself, like, how are they doing it? And I have to be there and I have to support them. Um, I have the benefit of knowing what's, not being considered stateless or borderless and so on. And, having, people in my community indiscriminately bombed and killed. And, so I think, but I think a friend was like, how do you manage through the despair? And, I said, well, I mean, I think about my Palestinian friends and how they find strength in every day right now. And you know what? We have to be strong for them.
Hmm.
And another friend, had an opportunity pulled from under her feet because, a risk assessment team said that she was too risky because of her honest opinions about gender-based violence in India. And she was asking me, why does this happen to us? And I said to her, I said, well, the company showed itself to you better now. And frankly, let these things happen to us because we have access, we have privilege, already by even having Hindu names in India, we have more privilege. So we're being made examples of, let it happen to us because we can still have a voice to some extent and hopefully, make sure it's less likely to happen to someone else.
That's very altruistic, Shruti, and I think that's a really mature, not that I need to validate it, but I'm just saying I think that's a mature way to look at it in terms of like, yeah, we can take it. We have agency, we have privilege. And, I had Humble the Poet on this show, and he talked about that. He said, if we use our privilege to help others without privilege, he's like, we're all privileged in certain ways. We're all, unprivileged in certain ways. And it's using your privilege to help people at that time. And it comes and goes too, right? Where a group of people is empowered and then they're disempowered and all of that. But no, I appreciate the shout out to the Palestinian cause as well because they're going through it. There's no doubt about it. Are you able to summon your talent at will? So when you have to write or produce or direct, are you able to just call it up?
I think so, and I think I can summon it at will when I'm up against or past a deadline.
Yeah. Thank you for admitting we all run past deadlines every now and then. At least finally I got someone on the show who admits that we miss
And,
deadlines sometimes.
I mean, it's really after a deadline that I will summon everything. And I think actually, weirdly, when I'm up against something is when I get some of the best spurts.
You're a
It's
pressure
either
cooker.
a pressure cooker for sure, or in the shower. I know that's trite, but it's true. And when I go for long walks or I go for runs.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really cool. There was a website, I don't know if it still exists anymore, but it was called Structured Procrastination. And this professor wrote a whole thing about how like whatever is like deadlines don't become important until they're passed. That was one of his principles. And it's so great to be a professor. And secondly, his whole thing was like there's something I don't want to do, but then what I wait for is something I want to do even less, and then I do the thing I don't want to do. Then I come to that. He's like, so it's structured. It just cascades all the way down. I'm like, what an approach to life. I am sure you get requested to do things all the time. We have limited resources. How do you say no to people?
Um,
And that could be in the
well,
context of
well,
projects that come across your desk that you said, you know what, this isn't a fit or whatever, or in your personal life. Sorry, I should have extended the question a little more, however you'd like to interpret it.
I mean, I think it depends on also what people are asking for.
Hmm.
And if it's work related, then what I'm starting to get better at acknowledging, even for myself, is my capacity because I can get very excited about the possibility of something, but not then I have to actually weigh in, you know, what experience does the person have who's asking me for the thing, and where am I going to fill in the gaps? And um, And have we all done this before? Are we growing? Are we just problem solving? Is that what this project is? Like, I'm being brought into, to put out fires. Am I building with?
Mm.
Am I adding to?
Mm.
Is this, and I think that's a big part of like, you know, decisions I'm going to be making. But also, what else do I have going on currently that this addition can take away from? Because you can't add something without knowing where something's got to give. And and I think that projects can, move and suddenly you'll have everything happening at once, or there'll be quiet periods. And so I think always kind of buffering a cushion of just space just for yourself is necessary. So I think I definitely am kind of trying to be better at evaluating. And there have been times I've said yes, and then I've learned pretty early that possibly this is not something that makes the most sense now that we've been able to like have some, chance to work on things together. And I think I can still say no then or
Right.
make an adjustment then, because if I feel like we're going to get caught up in something else that actually is not even about the work itself or about the project itself, and it's interpersonal, that's wasted time for everybody.
Hmm.
And so I think that, with the creative space, you have like so many personalities coming together, and some will be better at working together and not. And depending on where everybody's at, everyone's always at a different place when they're meeting to make something together, you know, whether it's like financial, emotional, health wise.
Hmm.
And so I think you have to, ask yourself, I mean, a big gauge for me is, am I going to be growing in a direction that I need to be in this point for myself? What am I learning? I'd rather work with people who know way more than me, because then I know where I get to evolve and be. I don't look at it from a place of like feeling intimidated or wanting to control anything. I'd rather not control anything at all. So I think my attitude is like to always be a student. Um, and so I think, a friend of mine gave me advice saying you start to move into a place of power when you actually say no more than yes.
Yeah, that's a great that's a great way to put it. And Mark Twain once wrote or said, I wasn't there, it's easier to stay out than get out. So to your point about like sometimes we have those feelings of like, I think I should say no to this, but for some reason I said yes, maybe I felt pressured, etc. But I think we have that in our heart of hearts and our soul that's like, oh man, if I should have just listened to my gut on this one, because now it's harder to, like when you're already down the pike, sometimes you're like, let me just wrap it up. But you're like, there's no wrapping it up. We're just starting. We have months to go on this thing, and it's easier just to pull out now. What do you see as your role in the Desi community, in the South Asian community?
I mean, I'm from India. I am an Indian citizen, and I grew up in the Middle East and in Oman, and I went to an international boarding school in India in the Himalayas, and then I moved to the US for college. And I, was but was neither Indian American. I was neither like, an Indian who had only lived in India.
Hmm.
I was part of like a kind of, you know,
Global.
Middle Eastern diaspora
Hmm.
set.
Hmm.
And so I think my experience in the South Asian community is quite expansive as well, considering that, even in Oman, of course, we had a significant Indian population, but, my best friend was Sri Lankan. And we had a lot of, intermingling also with the local Omani population. We were expats. Like we're growing up in a place where we're not from. So I think my role in the South Asian community is to kind of, in many ways, counter, in spite of my own name and my own citizenship, a pretty dominant Indian Hindu narrative that has permeated culture,
Hmm.
and to be like, there is a group of people that have all existed together in all of our diversity and the richness of our differences. in many ways. Um, that we've had borders put up, um, not necessarily because we wanted those.
Hmm.
And so I think I really look at my role as a way to bring that broader community together and building the depths of our understanding of that, complexity, and, making sure that also the Caribbean, diaspora experience in that is, connected. And I mean, now I live between New York and Norway. I'm part of a different type of, immigration and like experience, in a European set. So I think that, as a filmmaker, with my background, I try to make sure that our narratives, whether it's like things I'm writing or developing myself, or, as producers, that the South Asian experience really truly means that broad experience and not just one predominant narrative.
That's great. And you're one of, not the only, but one of the few who can tell that story, relatively speaking, having your international experience, global experience. So yeah, that shines through. And speaking of that, I mean, you help organize a lot of high profile events. So what are the purpose of these events? What do you hope people do at them in general? How much does networking help your career or whatever else? I mean, you're pretty involved in that scene.
I mean, I guess I made the mistake 4 years ago of having a, kind of little private party for my friends who were nominated,
For
and
Oscars.
they were nominated for Oscars, and we were at a place, Anurima Bhargava's place in New York, and there was Joseph Patel, and there was Anurima, and we were also celebrating our friend Geeta Ganbir, and then I had done a scan of, the Oscar nominees, and then I made, did a toast, and I said, there's a record number of South Asian Oscar nominees. We must do something about this. We must celebrate. And in a way, that became like the genesis for this event that, then early on worked with, you know, Manish Goyal, Priyanka Chopra, and Julia Acharya. The first year was at UTA, and that was kind of thrown together really a few weeks prior. And then the next year was at Paramount, and
Hmm.
it was just evolving and trying to find itself. And frankly, that event is always about the nominees. That's who it's for.
Hmm.
It's for that, and the nominees are going to change every year.
Hmm. Yeah.
And what was interesting that year, the first year it started, is that there was a film from Afghanistan by Gulistan Mirzai, who is Afghani. There was the first Bhutanese Oscar nominee of all time. You had Riz Ahmed nominated for two different projects, and then you had, a film like Writing with Fire, from India, which was about an investigative women's newsroom that was really taking on like right wing injustice, in the state of UP primarily. And so these were the films and stories and filmmakers. It just felt like an incredible moment to, at that point say, we have to gather as this broad South Asian community, especially in the filmmaking community and the entertainment business at this point and moving forward.
I love that. I love the celebration aspect of it, and it's an exciting time to be part of this community and celebrate alongside with you.